guys, and welcome back. This is a new week and it's a little bit different this week than it has been. Nicole and I decided that we were going to read two different books. A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Mist and Fury. This is because this book just came out and I had already read this one and Nicole hadn't. And since I'm on a Sarah J. Maas kick lately, I was like, you need to read this. So she did. If you haven't read the first, go check hers out. If you have read the first but you haven't read the second, check mine out. I'm gonna let you know when the spoiler section is coming. I just think that it's really hard to do a review of a second book without some spoilers. Especially because the spoilers happen like right away in this one. So if you don't want spoilers, I will let you know when to stop watching this. A couple of things. First of all, I picked this book up in the young adult section of Barnes & Noble where it should not have been. There's just no way to stretch this into young adult. I know loads of teenagers who could handle this content, but that does not make it young adult. It is not. It is not. Second of all, I read Throne of Glass in March, which is the first book in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. And since then, I have just freaking inhaled everything that she has written, everything that I can possibly get my hands on. She is a freaking fantasy queen, and I am so obsessed with her. I think the thing about her that I love so much is that she is the queen of badass female characters, which is so important to me. Too often we have, you know, these female characters who are written weak, like they're damsel in distress characters. She shatters that stereotype by creating characters who are just so strong. They have serious issues that they're dealing with, but they kick ass anyway and make sacrifice after sacrifice to fight for what they believe in, and they are fighters. That is the most important part to me. A Court of Thorns and Roses was loosely based, not even loosely based, it was like a pretty solid Beauty and the Beast story. And having said that, I had the same issues with this as I had with Beauty and the Beast. Now, I did love me some Beauty and the Beast when I was 5. I thought it was great. I loved the music. I loved the library. The library was like the best part. But I did not like the fact that the Beast was a dick and then Belle fell in love with him and broke the spell and everything was great. Like Beauty and the Beast, this book has Feyre and Tamlin. Feyre would be Belle and Tamlin would be the Beast. Feyre is super independent. She takes care of her deadbeat father and her annoying, obnoxious, thankless sisters. One day, Feyre is out hunting, as Nicole will probably tell you, as you already know if you've read this, and she kills a fairy, but she doesn't know it's a fairy. She thinks it's a wolf. And then she's taken by a very pissed off Tamlin to his spring court where he is High Lord residing over the spring court. And he's got a temper problem. He's got anger management issues. He can transform into a beast. He's got this curse. He's wearing this mask. It is Beauty and the Beast. Sarah needs to break this curse or whatever. Which she does. And you know that if you're here. So I'm not going to go too much further into it. So I did have issues with his temper. I get that temper is a thing that happens, anger management is a thing that happens, but it just felt kind of weird after reading the rest of Sarah J. Maas's writing, because her female characters don't usually put up with that. And their Feyre just seemed so fiercely independent that it was just hard to read that a little bit. But that being said, I did have sympathy for Tamlin in the first book. This second book is not based off Beauty and the Beast. It is more based off the Greek Hades and Persephone story, where Hades steals Persephone down for, is it like 6 months of the year? Ooh, I should know that. Raisin? I don't really know. I think it's Raisin. Struck a deal with Feyre in order to save her life that she would come spend a week of every month down in the night court with him. But that's about where it ends. I mean, we have that parallel, but that's about it. At the end of the first book, Feyre had just saved Tamlin from beneath the mountain from Amarantha, and she had broken his curse, and she had frickin' put her morals in jeopardy by doing this. She killed innocent people, innocent fairies, and kind of killed part of herself doing that and then ended up dying. But then she's brought to life by the 12 High Lords. and turned into a fairy to save her life as a thank you for saving everybody from Amarantha's rule. At the beginning of A Court of Mist and Fury, Tamlin and Feyre are both pretty darn miserable. They're both suffering from night terrors and post-traumatic stress disorder from the events that unfurled beneath the mountain. And all Feyre can really think about at night is the fact that she took innocent lives. And Reason still hasn't shown up in the court to make good on his deal, so that's kind of in the back of her mind, but she's not like really thinking about it that much. The Spring Court is readying for a wedding, specifically a wedding between Tamlin and Feyre. The issue with this is that Feyre is feeling trapped and Tamlin isn't allowing her out, isn't allowing her to hold her own. He tells her that she's done enough, she saved everybody, like, your job is done, stop trying to fight evil, stop trying to get in the middle of things. He's horrified of the idea of losing her again. And he just kind of keeps viewing her as this damsel in distress, which is super freaking annoying because she's obviously proved herself by this point. As the wedding is starting, Reason shows up and sweeps her away to the night court and kind of pisses her off, but also it comes as a relief because honestly Feyre has been independent for so long that a quick and easy tying of the knot just didn't seem like it would have been in the cards for her. It didn't seem like it would be believable. That's where I'm gonna stop talking about what's happening. That's the beginning of the book. That's like the very beginning of the book. And now I'm gonna go over sort of the grading scale before I go into spoilers. So first of all, the plot, I gave it a 5 out of 5. I thought it was great. It was so different than the first one. It was so good. I was so impressed with this book. I think if you had problems with A Court of Thorns and Roses, you should keep reading this because it just completely changes everything ever about how you view the story. It's a million times better. You have that awesome female empowerment again, and it's great. I love it. Characters, I gave a 5 out of 5 also because there was so much character development, especially in Feyre and in Reason as well, and you meet a lot more characters, and they all kind of have a story, and it's one of those things where you get enough background on people that you understand their decision making, and even people who are sort of villains, you understand why maybe they're villains, and I think that's really important too. For writing, I gave it a 5 out of 5. I sped through it. I think I read it in a couple of days, but only because I had to sleep. Beautifully written, and it was written in a way where you didn't want to stop reading, because if you stop reading, I mean, you have to go back to your regular everyday activities, and it's hard to do that when a book throws you so far into the world. The world building in this is fantastic, and it feels like you're there. It feels like you're just like a bystander watching it happen, but like you're there, like you're breathing the air. It's really disorienting to be pulled out of that. For pacing, I gave it a 5 out of 5. I felt the pacing was perfect, whereas in the first book it was a bit slow for a while, I felt. This one just felt like it was going and going and going, and it was fine that it was, because things kept happening and it was important, and it was just very well done. For the cover, I gave it a 3 out of 5 just because I don't particularly care much for these covers. I mean, they're not horrible, but I don't think that I would just pick them up. I don't know, it's just weird. I wish we saw her face. I don't know. It just wasn't spectacular, so I was like 3 out of 5. And the spines aren't that gorgeous either, in my opinion. I don't know if it's the font or what it is, but they're okay. And that's fine, because it still gives us a total of 4.6 or 5 out of 5 stars. It was fantastic. Now, that is where I am stopping. If you don't want spoilers, don't continue on, because it's not safe now. I'm not going to talk, well, I am going to talk probably for quite a bit longer. I'm sorry, this is going to be super long, but I've had a couple weeks to think about this now, and I've been thinking a lot. On to the spoilers. My initial reaction to Reason in the first book was not pleasant. He just seemed like another idiotic, disgusting, filthy excuse of a character. The drugging and the dancing really made me want to vom. It still does. My initial reaction to Reason showing up in the second book was, oh crap, not another love triangle, and it wasn't. Not really. After Reason introduces Feyre to the idea that she probably has these powers that were given to her sort of accidentally by the 12 High Lords when they brought her back to life as a fairy after she was killed under the mountain, she's very interested in using those powers for good. Because there's a war coming and she doesn't want her family or other humans involved. Her heart has stayed human despite the fact that she is Fae now, and she does not want the members or she doesn't want humans hurt, she doesn't want the members of her court hurt, she doesn't want Tamlin hurt or Lucian, and she's pretty much over bad guys and just ready to take on whatever she needs to in order to protect the people and places that she loves. Which, after all the shit that she's been through, is perfectly understandable. The issue is that Tamlin is not willing to let her test those waters. He doesn't think she needs to be involved in it at all. He's too distraught over the idea of losing her. He begins to lose control over himself in the way that he responds to her. He retreats, stops listening to her, eventually just locks her in the house, and ignores her for her safety, which is so freaking annoying. I just can't even tell you. Oh, I wanted to punch him in the face. Feyre, being who she is not complacent enough to let that happen. She ends up having a panic attack. Her powers show up and she kind of blows her way out of there and is saved by Reason and his friends. Reason takes her back to the Night Court where he resides as High Lord, and that's where she learns more about her powers and begins to grow. Reason is a very interesting character. He's full of swagger and he's dangerous and he is handsome, and he makes it a point to pretend that he could not care less about anything. He's not bothered by anything, but we learn that he's way more than what he seems. Tamlin is fairly static and stuck in one place as a character, and by that I mean he wears his emotions on his sleeve. He doesn't waver in his decision making. He's pretty firm about making Feyre stay and not really giving her an option to leave or to test out, you know, her powers or to try to help at all. He is sticking with rules in his court that his father said that he does not agree with, but he's just so stuck in one place and so just a mess. He's a broken character. Tamlin is a broken character, and I feel that people are accusing Sarah J. Maas of kind of destroying his character in this book, but he's always been this character. He's always been very sort of harsh and controlling and angry, and there are reasons for that, but even though he's broken, it doesn't excuse his behavior. Where Tamlin is that character, Reason is kind of the exact opposite. He's supposed to be the High Lord of the Night Court. He's supposed to be this cruel, ruthless leader, but he cares so much for his friends and his court and his home, and he has spent so much time under the mountain being Amaranth the slave, being sexually and emotionally abused and hurt and messed up, and so he has a lot of his own issues. His family was slaughtered. He's haunted by his time being trapped, by his time being a slave. So he kind of understands Feyre. Like, they have similar situations. Like, Feyre's not necessarily a slave to Tamlin, but she kind of does become that. She kind of becomes stuck. It's like Belle in Beast's castle. Yeah, he does not let her go. And it's just this trapped, suffocating feeling, and so it's something that they can kind of connect over. We learn just how much he actually cares about Feyre, and how much he has protected her in the past, stuff that she doesn't really know about, and then we find out that they are actually mates. There were so many things that I loved about this book. Everybody loves a bad boy. I mean, Heathcliff is one of my favorite, albeit messed up and horrible, abusive, disturbing literary characters of all time, but Reason takes the cake because he's actually, yes, an asshole, sometimes a lot of the time, but he is so three-dimensional. And although he wants to protect Feyre, he also encourages her and pushes her to fight her own battles, and encourages her to grow as her own person, and I feel like that's just so important. And especially as her mate, having that crazy bond with her, and he still wants her to be her own person. I just think that's really cool and really important. And he doesn't save her always. He lets her save herself, or maybe he helps her, but she is saving herself, and I just feel like that is the most important part of this book. The friends and family aspect of the story was also important. It was a nice touch. Esfira has never really had much of a family. I am not including her deadbeat father and her crappy sisters. Even if relationships might have been mended a bit, I still don't see them really as her family. Various members of Reason's court, his friends are his family, and they become Feyre's family, and I feel like it's just so important that she finally has that. It's so cool that she finally has that. It's beautiful. I love it. The ending wasn't necessarily a cliffhanger, but it still stung like one, and I have absolutely no idea how I'm going to wait an entire year for the next book. I don't know, but I'm super pleased with the direction this is taking. Sarah J. Maas did not disappoint. I thought this was fantastic. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, like I've already said, but it was just a stunning piece of work, and I'm just over the moon over it. So now that I've talked your ear off for like a million years, I apologize, but oh my god, it was so good. And if you've gotten this far, then you know because you've read it, or I hope you have, because I hope I didn't just spoil that for you. I did warn you. That's it. Thank you. I hope you're having a great weekend, and I'll see you later. Bye.